pledge allegiance
to the flag of the United States of America, to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Here we are, the first quarter meeting of the Land Acquisition Commission, January 14th, 2025, 6:10 p.m. We're here on the second floor conference room at Sullivan Independence Hall. Present, Rob Wilkins, Ted Desding, Tara Hawley, Adam Goodman, and Conservation Director Bishop. Call to order, okay. We're going to skip down to, since we've done the Pledge of Allegiance, we'll skip down to old business. I guess we'll get right into it. I'm sorry, we got to do the approval of the draft meeting minutes from our meeting a month ago. Basically, those have been circulated. Andrew drew those up, and they generally cover the purpose of our last meeting, which was to discuss our recommendations for the CPZ subcommittee for the Plan of Conservation and Development. That's going to be drawn up this year. So, motion to approve those meeting minutes.
I motion to approve the minutes.
I second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
All right. Okay. Okay. All right. So
Sandra's coming, or?
Sandra's going to be here in like 5-10 minutes. Should we pause, or you want?
No, I don't care.
Okay.
Whatever you guys want.
She probably
Alright.
wants to more than that.
Yeah. Tim's worksheet been circulated here. Tim, you want to have at it as far as any updates?
Yeah,
With our commission?
sure, thank you. Just a few this time. Previous quarter was a little on the quiet side, but again, there's, a bunch of balls up in the air, waiting for all of them to come crashing down at once. I'll start with 140 Limerick, which you've heard was approved by Conservation Commission, Planning and Zoning Commission, most recently Board of Selectmen, and is on the schedule for RTM coming up. It's a small triangular parcel with access from Shadowwood and Limerick. It was part of a 1970s subdivision just east of Mill Plain Road. It's 1.5 acres roughly. Inland wetlands occupy most of it, so it's really undevelopable anyway. It's regulated. The only advantage is for us to be able to control it by ownership. So I expect that'll continue to move forward at zero expense to the town. 3724 Post Road. This was one of the first ones I brought up, and it has failed to be on the sheet. It was probably informally pursued, but simultaneous with 3726, the one on the bottom. And that's because I had several failed attempts with the previous town attorney or special counsel back in 21. It's a 0.8 acre parcel contiguous to the one on the bottom at 3726. The last known owner was in Nevada. So current town attorney is chasing that down for foreclosure. So hopefully we get 3726 before we get 3724. But in the end, that'll again double our old highway open space.
Is 3724, does that have a house on it?
No, it's just a
Yeah, just,
Tiny, like,
it's dropping
square.
it, when I Google it, it's just dropping it into like wetlands.
Yeah, this was, again, both of them are part of the former Bulkley Pond.
Yeah,
Half of the lots were submerged.
right.
So, kind of a critical, inland wetland protection, purview, as well as adding open space. Big picture wise, I would plan, once we own it, have access to it, I'd like to put a trail, or extend the trail from our existing open space, into this area, and possibly put a boardwalk or an observation platform into the marsh. And I know Aspetuck owns some nearby land, I think on the westward side, if I'm not mistaken. The northern part of the former pond. And the last one recently, Marion Trust, owns 785 Oakfield Road with a house and, I believe it's like a salon or some type of business on residential, half commercial property.
South side?
I'm sorry?
Yeah,
I
at
don't know.
least here it is, yeah.
Yeah, I thought it was south side.
There's commercial there? Oh,
There's a sign that I see, it says
Yeah,
hair
like you
salon.
see all these cars right
Yeah.
there.
Hey, Ken. Let's start it.
Hair sculptures, yeah, I mean, there's a pin that's up there.
So what's up with that?
So it's a big parcel, most of which is occupied by tidal marsh. And I reached out to, the trust, the gentleman who owns it, shares time in, Florida. He called me from Florida, said he would be interested. We would carve out, an acre and a half of tidal marsh, which abuts all of our open space on almost all sides. It would add to our inventory as well as alleviate some tax burden of, useless land to the residential owner.
Oh, yeah, it goes all wait.
It goes all the way to
It goes all the way behind all the.
Oh, wow, I didn't realize that.
Yeah.
Wow.
Yeah, it's better.
You just saw that? It wasn't, there's no
Is this
tax
all
lien
town?
or anything, you just said, hey, this goes all the way around, maybe we
That
can
all
cut that
town
off.
too?
Yeah, that's all town.
Oh, that's awesome.
See, it goes all the way behind.
So,
wow. They can't do anything with it
yeah,
anyway.
it's underwater, literally underwater.
Yeah.
So, he's willing to carve out, enough of a parcel, and I confirmed it with rough sketches from TPZ.
1.19 acres.
The new line would go just beyond, I don't know if that's an aerial, but just to get the shed in the back.
Yeah, way back there.
Yeah.
Why do you care about that property?
Because it abuts my open space,
Yeah,
and
all here.
it does them no good,
Right.
and it helps him out by
Reducing
his tax burden, and he's willing, so, the fact that we have all those other parcels from the last 100 years, why don't we have that one? And if we're willing to now, before things change or people die, let's grab it.
And it means to increase our acreage.
Yeah, and protect that tidal wetland, so, not that,
It's somewhat protected already,
yeah, what I don't like, with tidal wetlands is, and my point with Tara of, the Circle Diner development as proposed, is a lot of it, all of it falls really into the jurisdiction of DEP. So when people wanna put in a dock or do whatever, I have no say. So if we own it and maybe somebody wanted to put a boardwalk out into the marsh and they got a permit from DEP, I can't stop them. So if we own it, let's get it while we can, is kind of my approach.
Very cool.
Especially since it abuts multiple town parcels. That marsh, our Oldfield Road North Marsh is, like 35 acres. So, if I could add it 1.5 at little cost and help someone else out, well, I'd like to get it while we can.
Well, he's gonna keep the house portion,
Yeah,
right, yeah. You're just-
yeah, in the new,
backside.
in the new kind of, lot line revision,
He keeps the shed?
he'll keep the shed
Yeah.
and his lot will still be conforming for all his purposes of residential and
Yeah.
commercial. The minimum, I think, according to PRD, was 15,000 square feet, so
Yeah.
that will it's an easy one.
So it looks like he mows it at least on a somewhat regular basis. Is that right?
On the back?
Yeah, is that all that right there? I'm looking at.
Mine looks marshy.
Yeah, the line would like cut, I have a different version with
Oh,
the shed.
okay. I'm just curious.
Yeah, right there.
Yeah, the line would go like this,
Basically where he's
Okay.
going.
Oh, okay.
just like that.
Right, okay, all right.
It is a good age right up to his house.
Yeah, way in the back.
And what I like about this is, besides increasing the acreage, is that it will allow the town, even though I know the town resources are limited, to monitor any sort of encroachments that may be dumping or things that are going on. The land will be stewarded better
Right.
than if he owns it.
Which is
Yeah,
why.
like all these houses could
Could-
be just throwing
dumping
stuff
stuff,
back
yeah,
there.
exactly.
Yes.
I like that, yeah. That's great.
Yeah, those are really the only updates I have. Everything else that's pending is still pending, and in progress.
I saw the one, Catamount Road, that big lot that's behind all the houses on Catamount Road. Any update on that one from the September letter?
That's the one right here, 688,
Right at the bottom.
is that inquiry?
Oh, that went unanswered. Yeah, I was thinking of another lot, but yeah, the part that's adjacent to Brentwood, that went unanswered, September, huh? Maybe I'll send another letter.
Was that
The
the
guy,
Florida?
Florida, Jupiter.
Yeah. Yeah, I could send another letter.
Yeah.
Sometimes what I do is I'll send two out at the same time, one certified, one non, because some people are just sketchy about going to the post office to pick something up, or, having to sign something, so that's one of the strategies. I'll do both tomorrow.
Is there an opportunity to pursue a bunch more carve-outs similar to this, to add to the acreage? More wetlands?
Yeah, if people are, willing,
Should you be soliciting them, or maybe just?
When I identify one that's,
What's there, yeah.
I start with our open space and kind of go outward.
Mm-hmm.
That's how I found this, because I was doing some upgrades at, I forget the name of the dead end street on the western side of that parcel. I don't know if you still have it up, Tara.
Oh, here.
Yeah.
He lives in a cute house in Jupiter.
Oh, no, I'm sorry.
Oh,
On the other, off of Oldfield.
Oh,
Enos? Is it Enos?
yes,
Lane?
that's what it says, yeah.
Yeah, we're doing some upgrades there, and that's when I came across this parcel. I was like, wow, this is big, and I was like, oh, it's not ours. And then I just wrote a letter, and the guy called me back from Florida, and was like, yeah, sure, it helped me out. I said, we'll pay for everything, so.
Do they believe you when you call, or are they like skeptical that it's like a scam?
I mean, they get an official looking letter from the
Yeah.
town, certified, I think.
Oh, yeah, certified, yeah.
And they, they call.
And you're not asking for money?
No, I said, we pay for everything. We'll use the town attorney to draw it up and pay for the lot line revision and whatever. It's such a minimal cost to get, an acre or 10 acres or whatever it is.
Right.
It's ours forever, so seems pretty no-brainer.
Yeah.
And in this case, it helps the homeowner out, then it's, double, win-win. That's all I got update-wise. Hopefully some acquisitions by, April?
April, yeah. Which, do we have an opportunity to still meet a Birdcraft, or is it?
We do, yeah,
something we gotta figure out how to do a Zoom?
With your permission to discuss now,
Sure.
my rationale with suggesting that we meet here would be, either here or downstairs, if we could swing the rooms is to have the Zoom capability, which whether or not anyone joins is a whole another issue, but at least it provides a recorded video, one for taking meeting minutes. If Cassandra wasn't here one day, then you could go back and get the minutes from the video, or just give us more the commission more visibility, if someone was interested and wanted to watch it without having to join the meeting that night.
Mm-hmm.
So there's a visual and audible record of the meeting instead, available online, at the town's website versus a phone recording that
Okay.
is less accessible.
All right, well, we'll visit that.
Did you look at the property that, trying to find it here? It's, the one next to, Brentwood, I believe, the one that's for sale? The huge one that's part in Weston and part in Fairfield?
No, I don't know if you brought that up, somebody.
I did.
Yeah, we talked about that.
Yeah, we just
Yeah.
mentioned
I
it.
don't think I could find it.
Myrna Lap, here, if you go back to your map, I'll show you where it is.
What's the address?
That's a good question. 95 Old Easton Turnpike is the Weston address. I don't have my Fairfield GIS open. You go to, just go
Oh,
to.
yeah, zoom out.
Yeah.
The guy for Catamount, just, I looked up the name, there's a Wendy, whatever the last name is, she's a realtor in Fairfield. He's married to her, where do you wanna go?
Oh, interesting.
Yeah, right here. I think this is Brentwood here, and it's, what is that address? Myrna, 1375 Westport Turnpike. And that's the Fairfield portion that's for sale, and then the majority of it is in Weston, and it's across 136 from Brentwood.
Okay.
I mean, this is a big purchase, and it may be an opportunity to partner. I mean, I don't know if the land trust has capacity to do this, but I don't know what the status of the sale is, but it's basically like a huge lot that I think there's maybe one buildable area, but they're asking an obscene amount of money.
Yeah.
And so, I mean, I don't know. It is connected to Brentwood, and it's rare to have the opportunity to expand an existing preserve, as you know. So it's something that we should at least keep on the radar.
Okay.
When these tax sales, when these delinquent properties, and I know this has been a while, but you notify the owner of the property, right? That's the first step. You
In writing,
send them
yeah.
in writing, and then oftentimes they don't want to bring it back to you. And then they have a certain amount of time to respond, and then at that point it goes to auction, public auction, or does the town just
The
take owner?
taxes do.
If they owe
they owe
money, then I could just foreclose on it.
You don't have to, put it to public auction. The town can just reclaim it because they're delinquent.
Unless they pay, then it's a different story, but.
Is that a Connecticut town-wide thing, or that's just Fairfield?
I thought that they sold the taxes. And then it's up to you, so I buy the taxes, and then I own it, and then it's up to me as a new buyer to force the foreclosure. I mean, the town can too, but I don't think they want to be in the business
Well,
of
the
doing it.
town, Norwalk holds a tax sale on occasion.
Yeah.
I went to one.
Well, yeah, there's Connecticut tax sale.
Yeah.
Have you ever been on the website?
Mm-mm.
I don't
Yeah.
think Fairfield is held on. I think
And not
Fairfield
every
kind of-
town is
I was
away
looking
from
at
it.
it recently,
Yeah.
I was
But
looking at that, and
there are,
the
I mean,
website's
now I'm
outdated.
checking this out constantly
Yeah.
to see, because there's like a property that we've got our eye on that has been delinquent, and it's going to auction.
Oh.
And so, and I didn't know if, it didn't, and I was like, wait, I didn't hear about these going to auctions, I heard the town just, and so it sounds like not every town has to put it to auction, if the town.
Yeah, I guess if there was some type of fight, but like, and I don't know, I haven't done enough of these where people are dead, there's no estate, there's no surviving kin.
What I'm saying is, if it was delinquent and I wanted to buy it, then, but the town is just reclaiming it. In this
That's
case,
assuming there's no mortgage.
right,
The bank's gonna have,
right, first,
First.
you're right.
yes,
You're
so
right.
that's assuming it's all cash.
Uh-huh.
But then in those situations, from what I understand, you can buy the tax rights,
And what is
the
that?
lien. So basically, the town will take so let's say somebody owes $100,000. The town, you can say to the town, I'll give you $50,000 right now. Sounds like great, rather have 50 cents than nothing.
Hmm.
Then it's up to you
Mhm.
as as a new owner to help foreclose on the property and
Oh.
force the current buyer.
But you
There's a
get,
whole
you
business
get
that
18%, you get an 18% APR on that tax, on that purchase, your lien, so it's really
Yeah.
interesting. So
Yeah,
there's a lot of
there's
people in it.
businesses that do it.
Yeah, this one, on this website, which I encourage you checking out, it's cttaxsales.com,
Yeah.
and very few towns are mentioned. It says, like, it can be purchased, or it's being auctioned for a minimum value of
Starting
what,
bid.
a starting bid is at the delinquency number, whatever their delinquent.
But you could probably go to the town and say, I mean, if you had a whole, fund, and you could say, okay, the town do $10 million, I'll give you 5.
Because
Buy all the
no
taxes.
one,
Yeah.
right, because no one buys it, then they're just losing the money anyway, you're saying,
Yeah.
yeah,
So
okay.
then the town gets their money, and
Right,
then
as a
and
way.
you might not
Ah,
collect
okay,
anything.
that's cool, all right, I'll take note of that.
Yeah.
It's a good idea.
I mean, I've seen the list last year of all the properties, but all of them had houses, 99% of them had houses.
Yeah.
And,
Or a mortgage, yeah.
yeah, but I don't want that, like, I want vacant land.
Right.
So,
Mhm.
there wasn't much on there for me to have an interest in,
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
which, again, maybe is different with the tax issue of, for a mortgage, there's no mortgage on the vacant land. Or, or it's vacant for a reason, which is why I would want it and not someone else that would have built on it or done something by now
Mm-hmm.
in the last
Right.
1,000 years.
Interesting.
So, yeah, I don't know, but, when we foreclose on, or push these to foreclosure, I mean, even 1207 Congress was, the guy owned it, lived in the house, which was the property adjacent, but just didn't, he's like, just didn't wanna pay the taxes, so it's almost like, I don't wanna fight it, but I'll just let you foreclose on it,
Yeah. I hate.
And then I don't owe you $150,000.
Right, I hate the
Yeah.
money, right, but
So-
he's credited effectively, I assume, but what does he care if he's old?
Yeah, I guess, so, and some of these ones on Beaver, or, Beaver, a couple of them are just estates where somebody died like 2 generations ago. There's no one like around or alive, or, so it's just a probate issue that town attorney has to go through, and that's what takes so long.
Mhm.
But then we get it through the court system, and no one puts up a fight.
Right.
There is no one to fight.
Right.
So,
Bunch of different opportunities.
So I just, on Catamount, this is the woman you said Wendy, she's a realtor at Rebus in Southport. I don't know if it's the same woman, but,
it'd be a hell of a coincidence.
yeah,
Okay. Wendy.
that's who you have listed here. But it's Rebus in Southport. Never heard of her though.
Is that your, the house that you work for, or?
No, I'm a cool banker,
Oh,
but still
okay.
you kind of hear names.
Okay, I'll check it out. The one,
That's your Catamount. And
yeah,
her name's on the title.
there was another one, I don't remember the address. I think maybe it was the Vegas one that Gray, that I put 3724 Post Road. I found a Joan Gray in Westport, and I remember sending her a letter, and she called me, she's like, hi, this is Joan Gray. I'm like, oh, do you happen to own this piece of property?
Yeah.
And she lives right down the road.
And it was a different
She's
person.
like, and she sounded really old, on the phone, and she's like, no, thank you, but it's not me. Like, what are the odds?
Yeah,
That like a half a mile away is the woman with the same exact name,
right.
and obviously it wasn't her, so, who knows? I'll give this one a shot.
Wendy's last name is a little bit more
Yeah, not great.
unique.
Yeah, exactly.
No, this is good. It's exciting to make progress.
Well, and I don't know anybody else is doing what you're doing. I mean, you're kind of doing my job, with the land trust, is like looking at properties to acquire, but you're doing a great job.
Thank you.
Impressive.
Definitely.
And I mean, you know, I've had this discussion when I was on conservation in Ridgefield, with the Ridgefield Land Trust, and it was like, I did just had this recently with David, like 2 weeks ago, we want the same thing.
Yeah.
Whether it has your sign out front or my sign out front, like, the goal is the same.
The goal is preservation,
So-
absolutely, yeah.
You know, it's sometimes easier, especially with this style of, you know, with this approach is, I have the ability to get rid of the back taxes, which is an advantage.
There's value in that, it's real value.
Right. You know, the town's not getting the money after 20 years anyway. So if
Probably
we can
not.
take the title and own it for preservation, you know, conservation or passive recreation, whatever.
Right.
Then why not? Similar to the Stonewall parcel is, you know, Audubon's not gonna show up with, you know, whatever, almost 400 grand and buy the 12 acres. So the town could absolve that, and that gives us the advantage in acquiring, so.
That's right.
Yeah, that's.
What was the conversation 2 weeks ago with David? Was that about Exide?
Was it Exide, and, it was
Bamboo?
mostly it. No, it was before the bamboo,
Okay.
because the guy from across the street called about the bamboo like the next day. I was like, I just talked to David.
All right.
You wanna talk about Exide now?
No, well, Exide was mentioned, but we'll stick to the script on this. So, our correspondence on the POCD, I mean, we're almost there, I would think. Adam, you may disagree.
I do, but.
Yeah, we have
I have,
we have a letter sort of drafted.
Yeah.
You wanna just maybe send it around via email, redline it or something, or?
you could,
Yeah. Or what, like, all right, so the foundation of the letter is basically,
what's the latest one, the one from 12/20 that you sent, Cassandra?
Yeah.
So I,
simplify it, you're saying? Is that refresh it?
me?
Yeah.
Well, let's, I mean, the one thing that we were talking about before was this idea, not this idea, our mission is to acquire open space, right? We're the Land Acquisition Commission. And the way we do that is we need money. And the way we get money is primarily through the open space fund, right? Is that right so far?
Mhm.
And how do we get money in the open space fund? We get that from in lieu funds when there's a subdivision going on. How, is that the primary means? And so we dug into the regs about, this is from last time, we dug into the regulations about what the regulations say. And so we were concerned as a commission that we have not properly been following the regulations. The town has not been properly following the regulations. We even brought this up to the first selectman when we met with him last year. And so, you know, I don't know if this is the right venue to bring this up to people, to the TPZ. Yeah, I think the TPZ ultimately are the people who decide how much money is owed and how you get that money. But the POCD is the next 10-year plan for the town, right, for planning. I don't think that means we shouldn't discuss this or bring it up in our letter. I don't know if it should be the focus of our discussion. And I reached out to one of the land use attorney in Fairfield. He happens to be on our board, Joel Green, who's very well known. And I've spoken to another attorney about this. And I did finally get some comments back. And so if you don't mind, I'll tell you what he said. So the first thing is section 2.3.8 states that in the event such fee is required by the commission, that's the TPZ, such payment shall be equal to, but not more than 10% of the fair market value of the land to be subdivided prior to the approval of the subdivision. And that was what we discussed prior to this. And we were like, well, isn't the appraisal based on the highest and best use? And it should be the highest number. And so his comment is actually really interesting. He said that my understanding is that the highest and best use of certain properties for purposes of valuation is not necessarily for single-family homes in a subdivision. I always assumed a subdivision plan would yield a higher value than just a single-family home. And I didn't understand that. He said by subdividing the property, you are reducing its highest potential value. Therefore, the town would be losing some portion of the fee if the property is valued after subdivision.
What is his logic there?
Okay,
I'm missing that.
Right. When I first read it, I didn't get it. But except
More improvement.
that, yeah, because every lot you create is like another $1 million.
So he's saying raw land, like I've got to put curbing in,
That's right.
sewer line,
Infrastructure.
or septic.
That's right.
Okay.
And so he's not saying it's always cheaper to
I
evaluate.
get it, if you look at the Saxo development at the end.
Right.
The curb cuts and the roadways. and
Right.
The sewer lines and everything, okay.
Right.
Yeah.
And so,
Okay.
But if it's zoned for residential use, I'm not sure
Well,
what,
if you factor in, okay, buy the land and you subdivide it, it might be a negative value, because it's still raw land lots that you're selling. I don't know,
Oh,
it's not really worth anything until the buildings are on it.
right, but that's a temporary situation, you wouldn't.
Yeah, but the valuation would still be based on
whatever the appraiser
raw
considers
land.
to be
Yeah,
the highest and best use. And so.
so then you'd have to stipulate, it has to be with the buildings on it.
Well, I don't think it should matter. That was my point, was I don't know that it should matter. It should be, the appraiser should look at it and say, well, if it's gonna be worth more as a single-family home, then that's what I'm appraising for. If it's worth more as a 10-lot subdivision, that's what I'm appraising it as. I mean, the highest and best use is what they always say, the appraisals are.
But I do get his point, if you're looking at it without
Right.
houses on it.
So-
It probably is a negative value.
So I guess my point is, maybe we don't touch that. Like, maybe it's not a for sure thing that a subdivision is the highest and best use. And so let me just continue, because I think
I think that if your suggestion, this is not your, I won't put word in your mouth. Maybe it should be the reasonable best use, so that it's
Well, you
not.
have to say completed.
But see, that's all
You don't have
subject
say-
to the
sorry, You
appraisal.
don't actually have to say that. The reasonable best use could be, defined. I think what this example highlights for me is that different attorneys will have different arguments for how something should be appraised.
Sure,
And I think that's what we're trying to lock down in the first place.
right.
So we don't want to make we don't want to muddy that more. We want to make that, more good faith, directionally, accurate. So if we need to change the words a little bit, that's fine, but I don't know, I didn't hear anything that you said that would make me feel that we need to back off of the suggestion.
Okay, so let's just back up. Appraisal, that's what they're talking about, appraising the land, right? And as
Yeah.
we know, that's not being done, right? We have never seen an appraisal for any lot that's been subdivided, have we?
No, we haven't.
We're seeing the assessed value.
Correct, we're getting 10%.
That's what the town is using, and that's what we talked about, to Bill about.
Then I believe that the town has every right to go back and request the additional money.
I'm not so sure about that.
Well, I'm not sure
Well,
what the
the
judge
town's
would
in
say,
violation of not.
So, okay, so
following
The obligation is not on the town to do the calculation. It's on the obligation of the developer to do the calculation.
Well,
And if they've calculated it in a way that is inaccurate, that's their liability.
well, except that the commission is accepting whatever that is. And so the second aspect of the regulation that I'm gonna quote is, we've discussed this before, and it says, the fair market value shall be determined by an appraiser jointly selected by the commission and the subdivider. That line kind of hits home, right? Like, has there been any joint selection of appraisers?
Not yet, as far as
And so
We're
I,
all concerned.
I said, yeah, so obviously the assessed value is potentially several years old, and it's 70% of the appraised value. It's not a real number. And so so Joel completely agrees about our comments, our feelings about that. And he said that the value ascribed by the town for tax purposes is rarely reflective of the true fair market value. The regulations should be followed, but I presume that using the assessor's valuation has become common so that the developer can avoid the time involved and expense of obtaining an appraisal. Well, excuse me if it takes a little longer.
Appraisals are
He says land acquisition commission has good cause for concern. I think this hits home a lot more than the subjective what's highest and best use, highest and best value. Yeah.
I think that you have a really good point, that this aspect of, actually following the statute, getting an appraisal, getting that appraiser approved jointly, that's not being done, and that is transferring value from the taxpayers in Fairfield to the developers.
Yeah,
And
we're missing it.
That is, that's a fiscal problem.
Yeah, it's
missing out on a fiduciary.
And it doesn't require us to create new statutes or regulations. This is just,
Right.
hey, follow the rules.
Yeah.
We brought it up so then the third point is that something that we should offer as a suggestion for the POCD review, as a POCD review? And it's pertinent to our mission, but is it really related to the plan of conservation and development? I don't know, and I asked Joel that as well, and here's his response. The issue, he said, I hope he doesn't mind I'm reading that on the record, but the issue involving the lack of adherence to the regulation on valuation can be raised in a friendly, non-confrontational way if this or a related issue has been raised in the POCD revision process. So he's not saying no, not to include it. He said, otherwise, the LAC chair should write a letter to the commission on this. Before that, however, you should have a discussion with Jim Wendt. I think that's valid.
But I'm thinking about it more, highest and best use is highest and best use. So if subdividing and putting the roadways in is not the highest, if that
That's up to the
obviously is a
appraiser.
negative
Right,
number,
right.
then the highest and best use will be as is.
But it's up to the appraiser to determine that,
Yeah.
but there is no
Yeah.
appraiser in this equation.
Right.
And that's really the crux of the issue, that
Right.
there's no one being brought in as the appraiser. So, so we agree that getting an appraisal is the first step.
Yeah.
Having a jointly chosen appraiser from the TPZ commission and the developer, and then, and so how we convey that concern that we're not following the rules, because we can't do our job as a commission if we're not getting the money that's owed to the open space fund. And so, do we want to write a letter to Jim Wendt? Do you want to have a conversation with Jim Wendt? I don't think we need to be confrontational. I don't think that's where we plan. I don't think our letter is confrontational too much, but I don't think we should be asking.
It's just a step in the process that hasn't been followed.
Yeah, right.
And we have to start enforcing it.
And we live here. These are our lands, and this is the money that's entitled according to the current regulations. So I don't think we should suggest any new statutes or regs. We should say follow the regs, and I think it's maybe, I don't know.
Are you thinking that I should write a letter to Jim Wendt before we draft something to the subcommittee?
I know we're running out of time.
Right.
It's the problem.
Because I think, if we have a good.
Do both, I think.
Yeah, do both, broad strokes and a paragraph about how the rules aren't being followed. We think they need to be looked at more closely as far as, this, and then tie it into the goal of conservation and how this is an avenue for us to,
And I think the
pursue
people
our
in
mission.
the town want to see more open space acquisition.
Right.
I mean, I'm sure you're getting pushback and
It's the way to do it.
feedback in that direction, right? I mean, no, from town people? No. I just think with all the development, people are like, why aren't we doing more open space?
I think if we had a cocktail party to talk about open space, you'd get a lot of opinions,
Yeah.
but I'm not sure that it's the number one topic at other cocktail parties.
Yeah.
Traffic,
Yeah.
which is the development issue.
Yeah.
POCD, yeah.
Right.
Yeah, but the flip side is to, acquire the land.
Right.
You can't
So
develop.
it isn't developed. Yeah.
So I really support your perspective that we should do both, multifaceted approach
Yeah.
to raise this non-compliance issue to the appropriate level.
Yeah, I think that's good. And maybe it's the same letter, maybe we address a letter that TPD and Jim went, I don't know.
I mean, if we wanna get into the weeds, so to speak, that should be in the letter to Jim Wen, as far as, what specifically we think needs to be done as far as these appraisals. I don't know if that's what we wanna have in the letter, the POCD letter.
Right.
Just keep it broad strokes but, so that would, you think we're gonna have that as like a paragraph or something, and then because that's what we talked about in December. is
I mean, that's
basically
my
the issue.
concern, is that the majority of our POCD review was about this.
Yeah.
And if we take it out,
Yeah.
then what are we saying to the commission that we
I
want?
don't feel like it is the majority, it's kind of at the end here.
And look at
Was there a significant, intro, and we have a goal of meeting the state's goal of 21%, we talk about that.
Yeah, so that, that will all still be in there, it should, just that we're on, the state's goal is 21% and we're at 17%. What is it, like several thousand acres back
Yeah.
there?
Maybe where you say we propose the future payments be based on the property time best use, I mean, that, maybe we say we propose that the statutes are followed, the regulations are followed, and that an appraiser that we get appraisals, actually get physical appraisals, and follow the regs, so that we can actually raise some money in our open space fund, so we can do our job and acquire open space.
And do we determine if that money goes towards open space? Or just goes
Supposedly.
will it go to you?
It's in a pot, and the only ones spending that money to buy land isn't planning and zoning,
Okay.
me.
Yeah.
So,
Smith Richardson Trust Fund, is that something? Is
Yeah,
that one of the pots, or is that? a
Yeah,
separate
that's one
pot?
of the pots,
Okay.
that lives in my department, not the in lieu of, that's another pot.
so
Or
I,
you general?
I think the letter the setup is really good, and it makes the point about how important open space is. It talks about, hey, we really would like to have, stronger funding mechanisms so that we could do more. I don't think there's
Mhm.
anything that we've said that contradicts that. But it's that paragraph, and this is the same one that I missed the last meeting, but I provided some input by email. This one that we say that the current calculation method of 10% is, in our view, unfair.
Right.
We want to take that out.
I think that one, that paragraph, you could approach it as saying, for example, right? Because this is not the only way that we can get more money, right? But for example, we think that in practice, this is underserving the town and not, fully matching the intent of the statute.
Yeah, replace that paragraph with a section about, following rules.
They're not fully what with the current, fully,
Not fully aligned with the intent of the statute.
Mhm. Which dates back to like 1998 or something. And I guess the commission was founded around then.
Yeah, that's roughly right.
If I could make a recommendation to, draft the letter, with the watermark and then present it before you meet with Jim. Just as an agent for multiple boards and Jim being an agent for, P&Z, I think it would be, advantageous or in this commission's, best interest to have that in draft form, have the discussion with Jim about the subject matter and then make any necessary changes. Because he knows the regs, top and bottom after decades, but also he knows his commission. I think
Right,
that would be a good strategic move. Instead of just saying, here's our position, give it to your commission.
Okay. So that brings me
Not
back
that you
to,
were planning that,
Right.
it's just my inside knowledge.
all
I
right,
agree.
so we'll draft letter to Jim
Yeah.
first.
I-
Totally fine with that.
Yeah, and I mean, this is all consistent with the spirit of being transparent about our aspirations and what we observe. And if we've gotten something wrong, either because there's detail we've missed or because there's facts we don't have, let's find out. And the draft letter's a great way to have that conversation.
So another letter that we give to Jim, or give to him and then meet with him, that's not the one that we've drafted already? Or are you talking about this letter that we've drafted?
The letter,
Okay,
yeah.
good, okay.
Just to say, this is what we wanna talk about.
All right.
He could be like, no, it's not this way, it's
Yeah, maybe
this
we're
way.
wrong.
And you're like, oh, geez,
Yeah.
good thing we didn't send it out, that, you know.
Right, good point.
Right.
So we would
Okay.
share with him a revised draft, as a draft.
So he can just have input before it goes in front of the commission.
Yeah.
Not a bad idea at all.
Yeah. And this is something, do we wanna meet with him in person, or do we just wanna get the ball rolling with just some email to him with the draft? Either or.
I would be happy to participate in an in-person meeting.
Yeah, because
But it
that was
might be-
that was on our agenda
Yeah.
to meet with him.
It might also depend on his availability.
Right,
I would
he's very busy.
Yeah, I suggest reaching out to him like tomorrow morning about
Yeah.
it, because
Especially give him a call, yeah, or something, see if he's willing to discuss it. All right. So we have a lot of material that we've written up.
not a lot.
Yeah, but
I
what,
mean,
yeah, all right.
It sounds like we're just adjusting that one paragraph
Yeah.
Okay,
and sharing it in draft form, because
Okay.
we don't know what we don't know. And then I think that we would soon thereafter finalize it and send it to the planning and zoning commission, right?
okay. Cassandra, is there other items in that letter you want to discuss?
How do we, what I have in bold is like, let's just talk about is, are we cool with setting a goal of, but I lost it for a second, 120 acres per year, which means over the next 10 years.
That's right, yeah, that's too much.
No, that was,
This is just a suggestion, by the way.
Of
It's
course.
not like they're gonna be like, okay.
Start high, yeah. Better ask for more.
So if we, and can I just ask a question? So if we did the 120 acres a year, that would close the gap in 10 years?
Yeah,
That was the goal, yeah.
So I don't feel that we need to close the gap in 10 years.
okay. I
Um,
only put 10 years because isn't that the POCD's plan, or is that? am I-
That is the length of
Yeah.
duration that is.
But we could, for example, say we'd like to close half the gap in the next 10 years, right? That would, so it's 60 acres, or we'd like to close a third of the gap, like, I think.
Well, how have we done so far? I mean, you're the only one acquiring land, so.
Yeah. In the last 3, I mean, if a couple of these roll in, this whole list is under 50.
Yeah.
And I started this in August of 21.
So there's a multi-year effort to get to 50.
5 years, 4 years.
Yeah, I mean, if I could close a couple of these big ones like on Stonewall, that'd give us another, like, that chunk would give us 12. So it'd be at almost 25 since 21, so.
Do you want me to take the sentence out?
Is there even 120 acres of
Yeah.
open to acquire?
Right.
I guess you have to
Yeah.
start buying houses and knocking them down.
Yeah.
I mean, 10 or 20 acres, I would think would be a realistic.
Is there any point to putting a goal? Are we
I
going
like
to hold
it.
ourselves to
I don't-
that standard? I mean, how,
I
what do
like
we do?
the
We can't-
idea of a modest goal.
I like the idea of a goal, just like we have the top 5, we should have a priority of properties to protect, like you said here,
Yeah.
the top 5, targeting a list of 5 properties for future acquisition. I think we should do a top 10 list maybe even.
What do we feel is a more realistic acres over the next 10 years?
Well, we've done
50.
50 in 4 years,
Yeah, so say 20 a
so
year.
10 or 20, I'd
200.
be okay. What do you think about that, Tim?
Yeah, I think
10 or 20 a year?
How about 15,
Yeah.
right in the middle?
Yeah, so 150
So
acres.
where are we gonna find this land?
I know.
Challenge, yeah.
You'd have to
Yeah.
knock things down, it's like the outside.
You have to do, well, that's why I brought up carve-outs, which is, I don't know. Carve
that
out
is
anything
kind
you
of what-
can.
It comes up,
Yeah.
there's land there, maybe you end up buying stuff that's for sale.
And the whole planning and conservation development thing is development and development. And we're here to be like, okay, screech the brakes a
Exactly,
little bit on that.
exactly.
Right.
We need balance.
And I want to add a point to that. Just your segue was perfect, and that is, I think we should add a paragraph in this letter, and I think we could cater it towards, to some of the things that Sustainable Fairfield wrote. And the main, and you don't have to read this whole 30-page, amazingly detailed, did you read this document that they wrote? It's unbelievable. It is obviously done by professionals who read like every word and every line. It's pretty amazing. But the overall gist is that development is up front, number one, number two, every number, and then conservation is the very end. And that they basically say that, conservation should be higher up on the list. That's really what they say. And there's some more details that you could get into, but I think that we could issue a general paragraph.
I'll put it in the end, like, in conclusion.
Oh, it doesn't need to be, I don't know where it needs to go, but I think we need to say something to the effect of, we'd like to see the focus, a little more focus on, and I think there is some aspects of conservation in the POCD. It's just not a focus. It's just sort of afterthoughts, and it's at the end, or it's buried in the middle. It's not highlighted like. I mean, it is the plan of conservation is the first word, right? Not development, right? And they say that in here. There's a couple great phrases in here, and I know I promised to go through here and send the group like highlights of their edits that I think pertain to us, and I still can do that. And maybe we can, use some of their language and just for that paragraph. But I think we need to say something about just the general gist of the POCD being so development focused.
Right.
It's like a
And maybe even in there, just saying, coming up for, maybe not in this round, but the next 10 years of a long-term plan of funding. And more, because the open space dedication is not gonna ever make us competitive. There's gotta be a capital source from somewhere, yeah. And if you're gonna have to buy buildings and knock them down, we'll never be
I
competitive.
just say, to achieve our goals, we may need to revise our funding sources and establish a more consistent funding mechanism.
I like that.
Find more capital from somewhere.
Well, to your point, Adam, in Ridgefield, the POCD lives in the Conservation Commission, which I think explains the fact that the POCD in this town, being in planning and zoning, highlights the fact that it's development driven and not conservation.
Yeah, it is.
You're dealing with two different pots with different purviews.
Yeah, like they say, could we please get conservation and good stewardship of the environment high up on the list? These are known to be highly beneficial to economic development, and ensuring public health is vital for anyone living in the area. There's a couple really good.
Can you read that again?
Could we please get conservation and good stewardship of the environment high up on the list? And we don't have to do.
No, I just need to start with something.
I still will go through and include excerpts that I think are relevant to our cause, but it says these are known to be highly beneficial to economic development, and ensuring public health is vital for anyone living in the area. Where is conservation in this paragraph? So what is the plan of conservation development? Where is the discussion of conservation in this paragraph? And I think that's just the general gist, is that they don't really talk about conservation as a focus. It's just an afterthought, and it's just sort of thrown in there.
And I think, buying a house like in that Stilson area, how great is it to have some open space behind your house?
Mm-hmm.
It increases
Right?
value,
I mean, like,
no doubt.
Yeah.
There's studies in like how many trees like optimize the value.
Yeah, I don't like being
Like a
back to back.
percentage, yeah.
It's nice to have a
It's
little
a great
buffer.
place to dump your lawn clippings,
Yeah.
throw your leaves.
Yeah, just have a little privacy.
Throw your
Skunk flips.
Christmas trees in the back. Oh, it's great.
Yeah, or just have a little barrier.
Have a kegger.
I do all that stuff in my own yard.
Yeah.
You would like to see a requirement for open space and tree coverage for all new large residential and TOD housing units in geography. It would be nice to have a greater sense, that's not what I wanted to mean. This should be, require 15% usable open space for all projects that include residential units in the park TOD area. Transit-oriented district.
Right.
Is where that-
Downtown.
So, like with the circle development, will they have open space there?
Not that I know of or remember seeing on.
And why aren't they required to give some portion of the land?
It's just not
I don't
required.
think
It's
it's
a
subdivided.
subdivision? Yeah, that's what it is.
No,
So,
Like
subdivision.
wetlands on the property?
No, inland.
I mean, it's amazing what they're trying to fit in there.
Yeah.
It's a city.
Ambitious.
Always about the profit.
And it always
The
will
guy
be, right?
from Fairfield, he spoke at the prep graduation.
Spinnaker or something.
So just,
The guy, Norwalk guy, sorry.
Yeah.
I was just saying, so
They
I
could be
think
a client of mine.
the goal of 120 acres a year is not a realistic goal. But when I think about the 3,200 that we have, and we have a growing population, albeit low single digits, I think we need to acquire land faster. So I would propose or make a motion that we put a sentence in that we need to increase the rate at which we are setting aside land.
Pace and scale of.
Yeah, and without setting a X acres per year, but we need to increase the rate, so that we, even as the population, grows, that we are making progress, towards this goal.
Before it's gone, because once it's developed, it's gone, absolutely.
That's right.
That's my,
Is that the spirit of?
yeah, 100%.
And for things like flood control, carrying capacity, I mean, the more structures you put in town, the water's gotta go somewhere, you know, so that should be in there. And you get into some of the other, you know, the resiliency terms that are floating around, I don't know if they said anything about.
They say everything about it.
Yeah.
So, can you say, if it's wrong, I don't know, to say like, let's just say Circle Diner for example, like, we'll be more willing to work with you if you give us some open space, or you can't do that?
I can't because my department's not
Yeah.
involved.
But to build on your idea, what if we suggested that the statute is expanded to include developments even that are not subdivided? So you could say, I'm just thinking out loud, so this might be really stupid, but you could say, hey, we would like to ensure that open space is met even when it's not subdivided, like the example of the Circle restaurant or hotel property. You could also say that, hey, 10% set aside for open space is not enough. We want that to be 12 or 15.
15 for sustainable Fairfield.
Yeah.
For that.
Like lot
Those-
coverage,
Yeah, those are two ways for us
not
to,
lawn.
Yeah.
to at least suggest that we secure more funds for this mission.
But from what I understand, if they're doing affordable housing, all zoning laws are off the table, so then they can do whatever they
They're
want.
not off the table.
They're not, right? Can't they
They
do whatever they
basically
want?
circumvent local
Yeah.
jurisdiction.
Yep.
But does that
As far as
get them
that-
out of paying fees? I totally get that
But we
Well, it can't
can't
be
force
stopped.
them to give us land.
Fairfield is supposedly going under moratorium for 4 years, so that
Yeah,
still
I
matters
heard
to the
that.
4 years that we are under moratorium,
Mhm.
which would also.
I mean, how can we not be at our 10% by now?
Because they don't count things that they should count.
Well, what I understood is they don't count anything that's in development, the
Yeah.
permits have to be closed.
And that's why there was a rush before, like,
Yep.
New Year's Day.
Yeah,
Same in my town, we got all these $830Gs.
yeah.
Mhm.
well,
In the last minute.
at some point, this situation
No,
with
that's still
830G will be
important,
closed,
yeah.
right? At some point.
Yeah.
It's long-term thinking.
Yeah. It's a 10-year plan.
Yeah, well, that's why getting it in the plan,
Yeah.
it's not gonna happen now, but.
I really like that proposal.
I think there's a lot of good
Subdivided
ideas,
land,
just
yeah.
like bubbling
I think
here.
that should be part of the conversation,
It's
when
just, that's
people know how to get
amazing.
them.
All right, well, then we should definitely have an in-person meeting with him, soon.
If
Anyone who
you
wants
like,
to come.
we can just iterate some proposed language, either you have it or.
I already
Let
know
me
Brian
know.
already saying 10 years.
Yeah.
Well, then
We
you
gotta
could,
look
you
at
know,
the
that would be in
10,
that.
the 10 years ago, if everything's going for storage,
I thought it was
Or
the
you
same
want
thing.
both.
if people don't object.
I think there's only one letter.
And that was back when you had,
The one that goes
like,
to-
where you could listen to this at Sacred Heart.
When does that draft?
Remember that? Where you could go to Sacred Heart and they were reviewing all the documents?
Mhm.
Probably need to.
He's like, nobody in the town goes,
Figure it out,
nobody,
but-
you know, and then they all
I think
complain about it
the
after,
idea,
it's all done.
maybe just captures
Just like
the
the
idea
UI
is
poll.
to,
Yeah.
I love the
It was around for 2.5 years.
I remember the first time I heard about it.
And
I was
then in
like,
the
what are
last,
you
like,
talking
3
about?
weeks, everyone came out with torches and pitchforks.
Yeah.
number
I
one,
kept telling people, and everybody'd be like, well,
You know, follow
nobody
the
would really
statute.
listen.
in terms of the
Until like the schematics went up.
appraisals
My
and whatnot, that's the first idea.
Until
Second idea
organized.
is consider
Yeah.
expanding the statute,
But
either
what you
the
said, I think,
percentage
is a good
where
segue.
subdivision from 10%
You were
up
saying,
to
can
12.
you mandate open space with
15?
What?
Yeah, I mean, like, if they have all this property, to say, hey,
and
give
then
us
the-
like just a
I don't,
portion.
Right,
right,
okay, that's right.
And then we'll
Expand the
cooperate.
statute.
And I know that
Commercial
TPZ,
development,
certain people.
or mixed-use development, even if it's
Would
not
agree with
subdivided.
that, and I think the
That
example
that
is
really
that,
is a good something.
Yeah.
because with the previous.
If they do those things, even if it takes years, that will make a dent.
Yeah, it should double the value of the money set aside for
I
that.
do call for
Commercial or
a
mixed
first
use,
there,
Even if it's not, would you
At
say?
what, on
not
the,
subdivided.
on,
on the,
I mean, the idea is to get several million into this fund, and
Yes.
that's impossible. Because of the cost of property. All right.
I don't know how you word that, I mean, do we only do that to commercial developers?
and is it only in areas where there's ecological, environment,
Yeah.
like the
Yeah.
tidal areas or the rivers?
Planning and zoning can determine that because they're really in the weeds about it all. Like, so if they know we need more money, let them do the work to figure it out in the way that they see actually doable. Because we don't really know. We don't.
We could, in addition to that, we could also have some sort of materiality test, right? So, in the simplest terms, if you're rebuilding something in the same footprint, same size as before, you shouldn't trigger any of this kind of stuff. But if you're making it 25% more developed than before,
Yeah.
or twice as developed as it was before, I think you probably should trigger these kind of requirements.
Yeah, like right all along here, which they probably aren't even gonna be developing on anyway. You know, all this marsh
Yeah,
land, and you have to designate it open space.
yeah. And in that case, if I understood the proposal, they're gonna get very close to Ash Creek.
Is it?
I think, the plans are on my desk downstairs, but, I do recall from the meeting with the applicant that there was a 50 or 75 foot buffer,
Okay.
not a lot.
So you can push it back a little bit, try.
I don't know,
Could, yeah, TPC could.
I don't know if this letter is, in the 10-year plan and that is gonna affect something that's already on the table like this. I'm more thinking about to the next one,
Right.
Yeah.
the one that's not proposed yet.
And the flip side is, you could say, carve it off, give it to us, and you don't have to pay taxes on it.
And it might be a
Something like that.
conformance issue, lot size.
Yeah, well, if they have that affordable housing, then,
Yeah, I don't know if that bypass is that right or not.
yeah.
Set aside under some sort of easement or agreement is probably good enough, right?
Yeah, but then they still have to pay taxes.
Oh, the easement.
But the
Yeah.
taxes will be based on the assessed value, and the
Yeah,
assessed value
I'm just
should
trying to give them
reflect that.
something to make them
Yeah,
want to do it.
incentives are good, I agree with that.
Well, I know with Exide, the previous, not the Porsche dealership, but the previous plan, the one that had 100 apartments, a self-storage unit, building, and some retail or restaurants, had a park on the mill, right? That was, like I said, they put that in their plan to add an open space open to the public with a canoe launch, right? Remember all that? There was supposed to be something
Hey, to the
right,
backside?
like west of Martell.
Yeah,
Like along the mill, they were gonna,
yeah.
and the TPZ was supportive of that. I mean, that's essentially what you're saying, they
Yeah.
encouraged it. And that was one of the negatives, and I don't know if this is why Porsche was denied because it looked like an alien ship landed, and didn't fit the character of the neighborhood, but the Porsche dealership didn't have any open space park along
Right.
the mill. So, and I know we're gonna get to the Exide, but that's sort of where I think we could play, or the land trust could play, a role, at least in that area or in other areas, like, hey, we can help get this plan passed if there is some dedication of open space. I think
Yeah,
that,
like even that, the Porsche dealership, it's like, just give us one section and make it like a park for the
It's that
town.
word balance again, right?
Yeah.
Somebody brought that word up, balance. The Porsche proposal wasn't balanced. It was all about how.
Well, in fairness, the Porsche was donating, over an acre.
Oh,
Oh, yeah,
It
it's
was-
donating it
oh,
to the town.
Same plan.
oh, okay.
It was, they were granting a public access and conservation easement over, a
Yeah.
little over an acre.
Okay, so we should
But no
speak
boat
down,
launch.
but
But public access, like benches and
Yeah,
waterfront.
and there was gonna be, I had involvement with the town attorney and their council to,
Yeah.
come up with the language for buffer, riparian buffer.
Right.
Native plantings, no mow, only gravel path, you know, a bench or two, but no, boat launch access because of the height difference.
But that's not mandated, that was just.
That was gonna be required,
No, but it's not by regulation.
not by regulation.
Right, and it's not happening in Circle Diner,
Right.
and I think that's what you're talking about,
Yeah.
somehow including that.
Because
Yeah.
they're not compelled, there's nothing that would compel them
Right,
to think that.
right, I think that could be a good add to our suggestion, is to,
Yeah.
I don't know how you do it based on some certain square footage
But
or
it's the only way we're gonna
acreage.
gain land in the town.
Yeah,
Right.
and I don't even know if you call that open space.
And we're basically
the
asking
same
the
parcel.
planning and zoning to consider that.
Yeah,
We need to
Yeah.
consider
Yeah.
that we need more open
Right.
space, please figure out the regulation part.
And
Yeah.
here are 3 ideas
Yeah.
to help get there.
yeah, I like that a lot.
And I think, Adam, to your point, it doesn't have to be confrontational, this is all
No.
aspirational.
Yeah,
I think everybody would want this, you know, outside of the developer.
You know what, the developers shouldn't mind as long as it's a level
Yeah.
playing field, right? Because when the developers are bidding against each other to buy these properties, they're all doing the math on what can be built, what's allowable. And if what's allowable is 10% less, they're all gonna bid 10% less for the land. I don't know if that's exactly how the numbers will work, but it's directionally right.
Yeah.
It's a level play, as long as it's a level playing field, nobody should be harmed.
Where is the boat launch? There's no
It's
water
wet,
there.
yeah, here's the Mill River.
This is too high.
Oh,
up.
No, no,
oh, cause they
that's the
own,
ri- that's the
oh,
river.
cause they
It
own
owns the
behind,
river around it.
around
Yeah,
it.
that's
I was
just
like,
an
is there a
island.
river back
Martell is
there?
just like an island. I think they should buy Martell out and build the whole thing, because it's just, it's like a jigsaw piece.
Yeah.
Kind of haphazard, with my tongue.
Oh, okay. Then can you get under the post road there in the canoe?
It's, yeah, you don't wanna eat the fish in there, but.
Yeah. I remember as a kid, the fishing, like, no, it had like 6 eyes, rocks had like 8 legs.
That was probably
Good
the
old days.
I remember
result
that.
of the hexchrome at Superior
Yeah.
Slate.
Oh, can you clear that
They
up?
were pulling up all the
Oh.
forms
Is
that,
that soil, can you have residential units in there and have a garden?
And Exide?
Yeah. The soil's been cleaned up, or is that still?
I don't think there's a land, any.
There's no environmental use on there, Susan?
No.
Okay.
Not that I know, no,
Okay.
or.
I don't think I
You
need
will.
it.
So they basically, they remediated the soil and or brought in clean fill, essentially? They don't have to.
Remediation, it was remediated, and I believe groundwater's in compliance too,
Oh,
from what I
Now
know.
they remediate the
I always
groundwater.
laugh that I drive by and they'd be in hazmat
Disparaging.
suits on the bubble.
I think
and
just
I
by
wouldn't
excavation.
freak out.
Remember
I
that?
was like, hey, this
Let's
is.
breathe.
The bubble of soil that was like.
Yeah, they're all, and
Yeah.
then your windows are down, driving past
That
it.
didn't work, and they had to go back and do it again.
Yeah.
Yeah. Isn't that crazy? All that money and it didn't work.
Yeah.
It was a disaster.
Last year, the the state DOH did, reopen, harvesting of blue crabs at that location, so the tissue
That's a
samples,
great sign.
the tissue samples I was out under that overpass, with DEP, with a hot dog and a chicken leg, collecting blue crabs for the tissue analysis. So, that's a good sign.
So with them churning up the soil with the marina, do they retest it? Because aren't they widening aren't they
Oh,
widening the
Southport Harbor?
federal? Yeah, that's
Yeah.
not gonna disturb it?
It could be, I mean, that should have, I'm not involved with that, but, any disturbance like that, the sediment would have to be analyzed. They're taking it and just dumping it offshore, so,
This way,
yeah.
yeah.
Handling it should require laboratory analysis.
Mhm.
That's all
There's
federal.
probably some regulations.
Yeah, it's all federal. Army Corps is doing it.
Regulations.
Yeah, they have all the written stuff.
Yeah, I saw a post, I haven't been down there, like, it's all mounded up, right?
Yeah, some big, long stick excavators are down there, 2 of them.
So imagine if they had long-term regulations in effect before Exide did what they did on that site, right?
Yeah.
It would be a whole different ballgame. I think that's our opportunity. Let's help get the regulations out there in advance of the next development.
We can do things in advance, we just react.
Well, but we can just get better. Just get better.
Baby steps, right?
Yeah.
All right, well, that's productive. We have some good notes
Yes.
and a plan. a letter. The letter was sent to, Tim's office, addressed to me, from, Bill Mallon, Vasco Hill Road. I'm gonna read the letter here,
You know.
Stuart.
Is this Millen?
Yeah.
Yeah, he wrote a letter to the land trust as well.
Yeah. Feel free.
And I think Tim spoke to our executive director about this as well.
Yeah.
Sir, I would like to bring forward to the commission the idea of dealing with the old Exide property in a different way. In a town as wealthy and vibrant as ours, would it not be a net positive if we could identify a benefactor to purchase the parcel and dedicate it as public space? Perhaps the town could participate as well. Now look at how well done the restoration of the Fairfield Theater was done as an example of forward thinking. We really do not need more tax revenue, and this would be an excellent long-term philanthropy. Importantly, it would serve as a much better quote-unquote welcome to Fairfield than any commercial development. Could you address this at your upcoming January meeting? Thanks. So, there's a lot of, plans already on the table for this property. And the funding, our funding mechanisms don't really provide for a purchase right now at this time.
I
But,
feel like the way to get this done would be to get the public involved.
mhm.
So that would be like sign your name to, what are those called again? Petition. Then you put pressure on the different commissions, and then you start to get to work together to do it, which is a ton of work. Where is it currently owned by?
Lenoci?
He had first rate.
Oh, we're talking about Exide?
Yeah,
Oh,
he's had first rate for like 30 years.
I can't think of it.
Lenosi, what, had first option, but isn't it still Exide, owns it?
Mm-hmm. It's in an LLC.
What about working with Fairfield U or Sacred Heart?
Oh, wait, his letter's talking about turning it into a park? Is that?
Yeah,
Yeah.
the entire thing into a park.
I'm thinking, what if you did like a land lease with Fairfield U or something? For like 20 years.
All right, let's back up one second.
Protect it.
The land is not for sale,
Yeah, it's not.
Yeah.
right? Like, that's the biggest impediment right there.
Right.
Not for sale.
Oh,
And
The angle is what we've just been discussing already, is just to make sure
2190 Post Road.
that the waterfront there is accessible to town residents, with the gravel walkway and things that are appropriate for the spot.
Mm-hmm.
So I think, I think that's kind of where we want to be, if we want to maybe try to expand on that. I mean, I haven't seen the plans for the Porsche dealership or
Our
Mike
job,
Chanel, that's what I'm looking for.
everything.
our
Yeah.
job as a commission is, why don't we just take this to Mr. Gerber and say, hey, this is what, the citizens kind of want. Can we talk to this landowner from a town point of view?
Well, there's the last sentence here, a quote-unquote welcome to Fairfield.
This is the gateway.
Yeah, so is there something in the design that could, I don't know, you said this design's kind of futuristic. Or should we kind of push to maybe kind of a little more compatible with, like that original design was supposed to be for, whatever, the multi-use? I mean, that's just kind of what I think that we, I understand what,
You paid,
there's the gateway properties, we should have.
About 4.5.
Paid 4.5 for it.
Yeah,
Wait, what did it say?
Cheap.
Mike Chanel.
Oh, sure, okay.
All right.
I don't think, well, like I said, it's not for sale too, is if he had a 50-year lease with Penske. So add that value over 50 years, we're not getting it for 10 million.
Yeah.
And you're gonna make whatever that, I don't know the dollar amount on that lease, but guaranteed
Yeah,
payments for 50 years, plus still have the principal value of the land. And it not being for sale.
unless you
The
did,
odds aren't too good.
unless you did some collaboration with like Fairfield U or Sacred Heart, where they got their name on it, used it, something creative.
My opinion is, I don't want that to turn into a park. And I'm all about it. I'm all about open space, right? But this is sandwiched in between, like, the busiest roads in town. The Metro North, 95, and Post Road. And
Peaceful.
it's not a, yeah, like, how is
Ambient noise there,
and I know I spoke to our executive director about this, like, oh, we can let the grass grow up and have, trails through the fields, and I'm like, what? Like, and I live right there. Like, my wife and I was gonna tell the TPZ this when it comes to the Sunshine Development, which is another development that they're, and I know the POCD has been through many drafts, and every draft has not changed the fact that they're going to extend the zoning from downtown all the way to the Mill River.
Yeah.
Whether or not they study traffic or parking or anything, this is one thing that hasn't changed in the drafts. And so my wife and I have always, when we moved to the area, we hoped that this would be an extension of downtown. We hoped that there would be ice cream parlors and restaurants, and maybe even a men's clothing store, since those don't exist in this area. I wanted retail. I want all this stuff. Now, whether or not I think there is the capacity for it, because there is zero parking there, there's like no parking.
Yeah.
That's the second point. But whether or not this should be a park, I don't know. I think there is an avenue for some open space there, like we discussed. I think that there's a great opportunity for the town or the land trust or someone to get involved with whoever develops that, and maybe they take ownership or management responsibilities of the area, acre or two along the river. I love that idea, but I think it's unrealistic financially, politically, for salely.
Tax way.
Exactly,
Have the
like,
commission write a letter once a proposal comes in saying, would you consider putting aside a little bit of land for?
A donation.
well, I think that what Ted said this would be a great example to put in our letter as a way that we're saying, hey, we need to mandate that any new development over whatever square footage, whatever, has some bit of open space. I think that's very fair, and this would be a perfect example. And I think there is an option for a park, small one, along the river. There's ecological resources. It's a great spot. But I don't want to see that whole thing. I mean, of course, I would love a park there, but that's not practical for the price.
Because it's like, what are they really gonna do with that as long as Martell stays in the middle?
And so the
Right,
Martell.
so that'll be a little park, and then they'll build over here.
Yeah, the acre was gonna fall under, Conservation Commission's jurisdiction and,
Yeah,
would be just another, we wouldn't own it, but we would have that right to maintain it, or obligation to maintain it. And that part is not going away, whether they change the building or not. So that will happen. And meeting with both attorneys, it was pretty well ironed out. So that, at least that part will happen. That there'll be public access, that we're having 4 parking spaces, and it's outside the fence of the Porsche dealership, so.
But who are we as
there?
a commission to dictate what the landowner does with the
Yeah,
land?
So you said that, you live in the neighborhood and you wouldn't advocate for a park there. I think my opinion is this commission, it doesn't meet our criteria, right? It's not a, contiguous connection to lots of other open space. It's, like you said, it's wedged between Metro North 95 and the Post Road. It's not, of all the properties we could invest in town, that one does not fit our criteria very well, from what I can tell. Except for the part by the Mill River, directly on the Mill River.
Mhm.
Which is being addressed already, for the most part.
I think that we should encourage that part is addressed.
And encourage that any new development over a certain acreage or square footage includes some aspect. I love that part of our
Yeah.
suggestions in the letter.
And I think we could all agree that we'd love it to be developed in a tasteful,
That's the issue.
welcome,
Right.
That's
constructive
the
way.
issue. I don't know. And
But
we
that's
can't
not,
dictate that.
that's not the
No.
Land Acquisition Commission's
I know.
role.
Honestly, I'd love a big parking structure there, because if we had parking there, then not the whole thing, just an area, a big parking structure, maybe they do parking up against, the train tracks and they do commercial in front, because you can't do commercial up and down that area unless there's someplace to park. Downtown has 1 million parking spots, and I won't go through them, but there's tons of parking, not to mention street side parking. There's not even street side parking there. So I don't, I don't need to get on my horse about my issues, that I think are,
Mixed use would be great there.
but,
Good parking in the
we
back.
need parking. I'd love for the town to take part of that, own part of it, and put a municipal lot,
Yeah.
Isn't that crazy for someone to say who lives
There's a
there?
lot of ideas, yeah.
I mean,
Again, it's difficult.
Rooftop garden would be nice in a location like that, right, above the fray and.
How many acres is this lot? Like,
Oh,
7?
wow.
yeah, but
That's
you
a
got
big portion.
Marcel right there in the middle of it, and then
Yeah.
the park would be over on that other
It's a
side.
weird setup, and I think that the road going into Martell is like town-owned or something really weird. The part of the parking lot for Martell is a road. It's very, very bizarre. But, I mean, I appreciate the letter. I'm curious what did you and David speak about anything different than?
Yeah, no, just about the chances or possibilities of, wild open space, which, yeah, I think everyone here would want more open spaces, what this
Right.
charges
Mhm.
to acquire, but one, I don't think acquiring it is realistic. One, because it's not for sale, and two, it's just gonna be insane money. I don't think, no matter how much money we could come up with,
So there is an
it's not gonna
existing
be.
lease, you said? In place, or?
Yeah, if that project, the application was approved by planning and zoning, that,
Okay.
the
And eventually
the owner
come
has
up
a
with
50
some
50-year
design. So they're just doing a land lease?
lease. Yeah. So he's guaranteed, the
Yeah,
50 years of income, which is why,
yeah.
once I found that, I thought it was 100, but it was actually 50. There's no, the price is not, it's not gonna be small, even if
Right.
he said, I'll sell it to you tomorrow. I mean, that's,
Yeah.
9 figures
Yeah.
of
Yeah.
income, so.
Big numbers. Okay, all right, so I think we, have an understanding of the property and, again, it's not for sale. And as Tim said, if it was, put on the market, we would be dealing with cost prohibitive numbers.
I mean, look, if you had found a private benefactor who was a billionaire, they exist. If you found one, and he just made an offer to buy it outright, what's in it for him?
Yeah.
He's not gonna make any money on it. He'd like to use that money to make more
Yeah,
money.
that's why I don't like
Yeah.
things like Fairfield U or Sacred Heart.
I love that
They
idea,
like
but,
the, Fairfield U is running out of presence, and I know that they're looking to purchase buildings downtown.
Their rectangle space is maxing out.
Yeah.
All I do is issue permits for new dorms and
Really?
new this and
Are they
that.
doing anything on Round Hill? I thought, they're not cutting out that berm right there.
No, that's required, that was a requirement
Yeah.
of the permit.
But they're trying to
For that
go up on
Regis
some of
West.
those buildings?
Not that I know of now, right now, I don't have any,
I showed that house on Round Hill at 2.8, and I was like, are they putting something right there? And I was trying to.
SantaCon, maybe we can have SantaCon there next year.
Bid for SantaCon.
I don't think one Fairfield U student was at SantaCon.
People came from all over.
Oh,
It
my
was
son came down
Boston.
with his friends,
Yeah.
I talked to
It was
a
good.
lot.
My family was driving, because the menorah and Christmas tree lighting was at the same time,
Yeah.
or at the end, and we were going to, and I'm like, nope, we're not. Yeah, it was like total chaos, and that wasn't even near the beach, that was just people.
All right.
Yeah, I think we're done. Motion to
I know
adjourn?
where it's close, but.
I second that.
All right.
All right.
Hi.
Good meeting, guys.
That was very informative.
Thanks, Tim, thanks for your help.
Thank you.